Hello there folks, Cranky Old Cuber here. Today I'll be reviewing the latest 4x4 offering from MoYu, the AoSu GTS M. I'll be comparing it primarily to the Mutant Blue that I magnetized and set up, and which, spoiler alert, up until recently served as my main. As a matter of fact, I recorded some averages of 5 with both cubes, which is what's playing at the top of the screen. The AoSu is on the left, and the blue is on the right. As its name suggests, the AoSu GTS M is magnetized at the factory. I couldn't resist taking the pieces apart to see how they did the magnetization. So they've added little slots for the magnets to sit in, which probably makes it for easy placement. I compared against my magnet inventory, and it looks to me like they're using 4x1mm discs for the center pair, probably N50 or N52 strength based on the very pronounced bump I can feel when turning those layers. For the corner edge pair, it looks like a 4x1mm disc in the edge and a 4x1.5mm disc in the corner. I would imagine they're using the same strength as the inner pair for the 4x1mm discs, mostly because it would result in fewer manufacturing mistakes to have only one kind of 4x1mm disc. For the corner magnet, the bump is more subtle, so it's possible they're using N35 for those 4x1.5mm discs, but it could be N50. That's probably what I'd use, although to be perfectly honest, I probably would have just used 4x2mm N35s because they're pretty ubiquitous and they're a decent strength and weight. Alright, before I go any further, a little history about me and the 4x4 cube. Before I had a magnetized 4x4, I used a black Mutant Blue, which was the best 4x4 Mutant had to offer at the time. It still is, actually. I had a Chi Wuchui and a MoYu Mini AoSu, and while both of those were fine, I found I got better times on the Mutant. The Mini AoSu felt okay, but it just seemed catchy to me, and I spent a lot of time fighting the cube and fixing alignment instead of turning. The Wuchui was smooth, but sluggish. No matter how I set it up, it just wouldn't go very fast. I've got a bunch of other 4x4s, like the MF4S and both sizes of the Chi Thunderclap, and the Chi Wan too, and also a Kung Fu Kongfeng, and various other 4x4s that are not good at all. The ones I mentioned are pretty okay, but the only one of those that comes close to being in the same class as the Blue would be the Mini Thunderclap, and that one would need to be magnetized. So I had pretty much settled on the Mutant Blue and I moved on with my life, and my 4x4 time steadily improved. Then magnetic cubes started to become a thing, and after making a few magnetic 3x3s, I decided I really wanted a magnetic 4x4. Eventually, I got the nerve up to try magnetizing a 4x4 myself at home, so I got a stickerless Blue and took the plunge. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. It ended up being tedious more than difficult. Once magnetized and with slightly looser tensions, this cube went so much faster to the point where it was crazy hard to control. But soon enough, I got used to it and finally started seeing times edging down towards 2 minutes with the occasional sub 2. When the AoSu GTS M was released, I was interested, but not super excited. I liked what MoYu did with their AoSu mechanism with all the shape mods, but I wasn't impressed enough with the Mini AoSu to really care much about the new cube, and I also did not know that the full-sized AoSu was actually way better than the Mini AoSu. So I wrote it off as something I'd eventually get to, but not important right now. Then of course, Cranky Dave acquired one. And he told me all about it, told me how good it was and how much he liked it and how he got better times. So naturally, I had to order one. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I'd unbox it, solve it, not like it, and stick it on a shelf. This obviously is not what happened. Ironically, I didn't actually record an unboxing of this cube for some reason I don't remember. I went back and looked through my videos from the time, and I guess I must have been overwhelmed by other stuff and I just wanted to open the cube and use it. Frankly, that's probably alright. I'm sure I do enough unboxings as it is. But it means I never gave any first impressions on this cube. That's probably a good thing because my very first impressions were not super favorable of this cube. Now, after I got it, for some reason I did set up to record some solves with it. And the very first on-camera solve I did with it was a PB, a minute 43.32 seconds. This was my first sub 145 if I recall correctly. That was quite a surprise and definitely moved my inclination toward the cube in the positive direction. I decided to review it against my current favorite 4x4, my lovingly hand-magnetized Mutant Blue. So I lubed and tensioned it to my liking and started carrying it with me just to make sure I got in at least a bunch of casual solves to get it broken in before I put it head-to-head against the Blue. During that time, I couldn't decide if I liked the way it felt. I didn't get a lot of lockups or internal pops, but the ones I did get were bad enough they would have been DNFs if I had been officially timing. To contrast, I rarely lock up or pop with the Blue, and I can usually salvage the solve. My times are such that a few seconds here or there to fix a pop is not that big of a deal. The thing I did notice though, was my times seemed to be faster with the AoSu than with the Blue. And though the Blue feels really great and I love solving it, for some reason it didn't seem like I got as many sub 2s with it as I was seeing with the AoSu. I even switched back to carrying the Blue with me everywhere just to make sure it wasn't just a matter of what I was used to. And even after solving a bunch on the Blue, my timed sessions were still better with the AoSu. Of course, the fact that I get better times on it than with the Blue doesn't help anybody but me. For all I know, I have a solving style peculiar to me, and the fact that I get better times with it is meaningless for the purpose of reviewing the cube for other people. So I'll go ahead and talk about subjective stuff too. I'll be honest, I didn't really care for the feel of this cube when I first got it. It felt clacky. There was something about the plastic that makes it seem less smooth to me. My Blue is silky smooth for the most part, and the plastic feels softer to me, for lack of a better word. The AoSu GTS M's plastic feels harder to me, and thus clackier. Initially, the AoSu put me in mind of a better quality MF4S, the Cubing Classroom 4x4. The MF4S is not a great cube though, so this was a bit disappointing. I grabbed it off the shelf and did a couple of solves with it to see if my recollection was correct, and I'm glad I did. While the AoSu GTS M shares a few attributes with the MF4S, like harder, clackier plastic, and an initial feel that I can't quite describe, it turns out the perceived similarity was entirely superficial. The MF4S is bigger, way clackier, and locks up frequently no matter how I tension it, and is just generally unpleasant to solve on. So, the AoSu GTS M is not really an upgraded MF4S. This led me to wonder how similar the GTS M was to the previous AoSu, so I grabbed my mini AoSu off the shelf and did some turns and solves to get reacquainted with it. I think there is definitely a MoYu feel in common, but there's just no comparison between the mini AoSu and the GTS M. Where the AoSu is frustratingly catchy, the GTS M is silky smooth and fast. Now obviously the magnets are going to help with stability and allow for looser tensions, and this is nice, but magnets don't make a mechanism smoother. MoYu has definitely upped their 4x4 game with the AoSu GTS M. So looking at the piece design here, we can see the GTS M's lineage. Parts of the edge pieces bear a marked resemblance to the previous AoSu's edges, but the MF4S edges are much simpler. The corner stock looks to be a completely new design here, where the original AoSu and the MF4S are much more similar to each other than to the GTS M. Okay, so enough about that. I probably could have summed all that up by simply noting the MoYu AoSu GTS M 4x4 is way gooder than all the other MoYu 4x4 cubes because they are not as good. So there you go. Okay, so the size of the GTS M is pretty good. At 61.5 millimeters, it's a bit bigger than the Mutant Blue and the mini AoSu, and a bit smaller than the MF4S, and also the Qi Wuchui. I noticed the difference between the GTS M and the Blue, but I've not found it to be detrimental to solving. After I've been solving with the Blue for a while though, the AoSu feels a bit big and clumsy until I get used to it again, and then the AoSu feels great again, and it shows in my times. I'll probably keep going back and forth between the Blue and the AoSu depending on my mood, the day of the week, and the alignment of the planets, because they are both fantastic magnetic cubes. The AoSu gets a slight edge on times. Every time I've done sessions to compare averages, the AoSu wins just by a little bit. In the averages of 5 here, I got a 209.09 average and a best single of 148.68 with the Mutant Blue M, and a 208.51 average, including a 152.28 best with the AoSu GTS M. And also, right before recording this review, I did an average of 12 with each just to be sure, and I got essentially the same result. In fact, in this average, every metric was slightly better with the AoSu GTS M. It also doesn't hurt that while warming up for 4x4 at PDX Cubing for Causes, I set a new personal best with the AoSu GTS M. 1 minute, 32.96 seconds. That was crazy. I stared at the time, I couldn't believe it. That was a super awesome solve. Sadly, at PDX Cubing for Causes, I then went on to not make the cutoff. But, what are you gonna do? So, my conclusion? Here it comes. In my opinion, the AoSu GTS M joins the Mutant Blue M at the top of the current 4x4 offerings. And if you like solving 4x4, you should give it a look because it might suit you. And you might be surprised, as both I and Cranky Dave were. Don't just take my word for it though. I have it on good authority from G here that the AoSu GTS M is a pretty okay cube, and you should get it. G, or Giovanna, and she really likes my AoSu GTS M. Yeah.
It's worth buying.
And she's awesome, so you should definitely buy the AoSu GTS M because it's really good.
It's really good.
So that's it for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you on the flippity flop. Cheers.